Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. We have an injury update regarding Cole Palmer. Tyrique George is expected to leave Chelsea on a permanent deal by the end of the window. We also have player updates regarding Axel Disasi, Ben Chilwell, Raheem Sterling, Christopher Nkunku and Xavi Simons. Not only that, but Chelsea are no longer pursuing Morgan Rogers and Nicolas Jackson has agreed terms to go to Bayern Munich. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k before the end of 2025. Kicking things off, Matt Law has reported that Chelsea are still waiting to find out the extent of Cole Palmer's groin problem, but there is optimism that the midfielder Romeo Lavia will be fit for selection after the international break. Sky Sports News has reported that Cole Palmer is not training with the Chelsea squad. They continue to report that Cole Palmer is doing indoor work today. Chelsea want to take it easy and see if he can be available later on in the week or not. Now, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't want to rush him back. I want him to take his time. I want him to be fit, ready and available in his own time because we have the luxury this season of not being so heavily reliant on Cole Palmer. Now, yes, he is our best player. We don't have to rely on him nowhere near as much as we did last season. Esteval came in and yes, we played a poor West Ham team, but we saw glimpses that we have other players that can fill the Cole Palmer role while he is unavailable. Whether he is injured, whether he's ill, whether he's whatever it may be, if he's not available, we have players that can come in and do that. So there's no need to rush Cole Palmer back. This is very standard. The one thing that does concern me is we've not had test results back. We've not had the scan results back. It's not been made public in terms of how, potentially bad this injury could be. The fact that he's doing indoor work, he's training alone, and they're kind of assessing him as he goes to tell me that it must be very minor or minor to moderate, rather than a long-term injury where he can't train at all. And we had that sort of Levi Colwell announcement of, we're going to see how things are, bang, ACL injury, which is I'm very, very grateful for. But I feel like with Cole Palmer, we don't have to necessarily wrap him in bubble wrap. He doesn't get injured too much, which we're very lucky for, very grateful for. He's very resilient. He has played through injury as well while being at Chelsea. We've seen that a few times where, it's come out from Enzo Maresca, where he's not maybe performed as well. It's like, he's not been right for the last 3 or 4 days, or he's felt a little niggle here and there, or whatever it may be. Not just the West Ham game, but prior to that last season as well. So I feel like because of the sort of players that we have in the squad, the depth that we have, the rotation we have, we've got players like, João Pedro that can play in a 10 if needed. We've got obviously Esteval that can do the similar things. We also have other players that can fill in for Cole Palmer if needed. There's no need to rush him back. So this is very, very good news from what I can see. Obviously, it's not been announced what the actual injury is, how long he's going to be out for. I'm expecting him to not be ready for this weekend's game, and I expect him to be back after the international break based on what we're seeing in the reports. They're also saying Romeo Lavia could be back after the international break. That's a huge plus. Again, I always say this with Romeo Lavia, fantastic player. Unbelievable skill and ability that player has. He just needs to be able to stay fit. But again, there is less pressure on keeping him fit this season because we have the likes of Dario Asugo alongside Caicedo, Enzo and Andre Santos that can rotate in them sort of 6 roles and them advanced 8 roles. So I'm happy that Lavia is expected to be back after the international break. I think it's going to be really, really good to see him play in this new Chelsea system, how it's gelled a bit more, the foundations have grown, we've got new players in the mix as well. It'd be really interesting to see how that blossoms. And I'm hoping that he can stay fit because, again, when he's called upon, he's unbelievable. But it's just keeping him fit. And hopefully he can get over this hurdle of these reoccurring injuries and stay fit for a long period of time. Same with Wesley Fofana. He's now back. He got some minutes against West Ham. Hopefully he can also stay fit. But we've also got a very deep squad where we can rotate players if needed. And Enzo Maresca's been very, very good at man management, minute management for these players to keep them fit for as long as possible. We know that with Lavia, a stiff breeze will injure him and we need to kind of wrap him in bubble wrap. But it's nice to know that he could be fit for selection after the international break. It's just good to add into the mix. And I'm hoping for the same with Cole Palmer. And I feel like we don't need to rush him back. When he does come back, give him a handful of minutes. See how he gets on. If he's ready, cool, play him. And I feel like we are in a very good position in that sense. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Cole Palmer's injury. Do you feel like it's going to be minor? Do you feel like he'll be back this weekend? Do you feel like he'll be back after the international break? And how would you reintegrate Cole Palmer back into the squad? Would you truck him straight into that starting 11? Would you ease him in with a few minutes? Let me know your thoughts. Fabrice Hawkins has reported that Sunderland are ready to send a formal bid for Axel Disasi. Bournemouth is also interested. They can offer a loan with an option to buy, not mandatory. 2 other top clubs clubs are monitoring. And David Ornstein has reported that Bournemouth want Axel Disasi on loan from Chelsea, and their interest in him is ongoing, but they are not close to an agreement as things stand. Now, I find this very interesting when it comes to Axel Disasi, because all of a sudden, it looks like there are a lot of clubs fighting for his signature, which I just didn't expect to be seeing. We've got the likes of Sunderland, we've got the likes of Bournemouth, we've had Wolves that are interested, Aston Villa that have been interested. A lot of Premier League clubs want his signature. Now, I do think he is a good centre-back, like I said in previous videos. It just hasn't worked out for him at Chelsea, and it's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And Chelsea obviously want to offload him on a permanent this summer. Obviously, we're looking for around £30 million for Disasi. If we get that, that would be unbelievable business. I do feel like a loan with an obligation is probably the easier route. With 6 days left of the window, something like that. It's less than a week now, 5 or 6 days. These are where these loan with obligations may come in handy. Because again, a lot of clubs might not have the budget to go get the player, but they've played a few games now and they think, actually, we do need to go in the market now, see who's available, see what opportunities there are, and see what we can spend. We might not have the budget, but we can see who we can get on loan. It means that Chelsea can guarantee money further down the line. It also means that they can get these players off the books because they can get the other team they're getting loaned to pay the wages, which is great. Obviously, we would prefer a permanent move. Chelsea have been pushing for a permanent move with the likes of Axel Disasi, Chilwell, Sterling, etc., etc. But it might come into play where loans with obligations are the route to go. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens with Axel Disasi. I really don't know where he'll end up. I think Bournemouth would be a very good move. I also think Sunderland would be a very good move for him. He's going to get a lot of game time at those clubs, and we've also dealt with these clubs previously this window, so there may be good relationships between them, whether or not it suits them to work with us with Axel Disasi in terms of, I don't think personal terms being an issue really. I think Disasi just wants to play football regularly. A lot of players do, but when it comes to the club talks, it might be, in both interests to do a loan with an obligation or a loan fee with no obligation or whatever it may be, where it's easier for both clubs just to get this deal over the line because we have limited time, and Chelsea are still trying to offload a stupid amount of players. So very interesting to see where Axel Disasi ends up. But I'd like to know your thoughts down below. Where do you see Axel Disasi going at the end of the window? Do you see him going to Bournemouth, Sunderland, Villa, Wolves, another Premier League club, or is he going to go somewhere mainland Europe or somewhere that's just not been linked recently in the last few days? Does someone come and swoop him up? Do Chelsea get 30 million for him, or is it a loan with an obligation? Matt Law has reported that Tyrique George is expected to leave Chelsea permanently. He has interested RB Leipzig along with AS Roma, while also having interest from at least 2 Premier League clubs. Fabrizio Romano reported Chelsea want a heavy sell-on clause for Tyrique George if he leaves permanently. Now, if I'm being honest, this one hurts a lot because I genuinely thought that Tyrique George would be going on loan. It was made very abundantly clear earlier in the window from the player and the club that there were going to be limited minutes for Tyrique George. And I would personally like to see him go on loan and stay like a dry loan, just a loan spell to another club where he's going to get loads of minutes, he's going to get the experience, and he can come back as a more developed player and see if he could be reintegrated into Chelsea's first team and be a long-term player. However, it does not look like it's going to be that way. So whether or not Chelsea again do a loan with an obligation, I don't think they will with Tyrique George because he's an academy product. I feel like he will be going on a permanent deal because it's pure profit, and Chelsea are going to try and squeeze as much money as possible for him, which is really sad. Obviously, we understand the model, right? But Tyrique George is a fantastic player. And there's a lot of you in the comments that have been saying that rather go get Garnacho, just keep Tyrique George. And then you can, on the left-hand side, you can have Gittins and George rotating throughout the season. Now, the debate between Tyrique George and Garnacho is basically personal preference. One's got 3 years of Premier League experience, scored in finals, played for Manchester United in a poor environment. Tyrique George had a bit of a breakthrough season last season, playing a lot of Europa League games, Premier League games, scoring Premier League goals. I'd be happy either or, really, because I still feel like Gittins is going to be the main player on that left-hand side who is developing. He is the one for the long term. We've also got the likes of Xavi Simons, who we'll speak about a little bit later. We've also got the likes of João Pedro, who could play off of the left. I feel like we have options. And that's the best thing about this season, is we have options. But specifically with Tyrique George on a permanent deal leaving Chelsea, it just kind of hurts. I get it. You've got to take the emotions out of it when it comes to football. But there's certain players that you gravitate towards, right? At the moment, one of my favourite players of the last few seasons has been Enzo Fernandez. I just gravitate towards him. Now it's heavily Esteval, João Pedro. There's just something about them. Caicedo, Cucurella. You just gravitate towards them, right? So with Tyrique George, it's like, yeah, he's going to be the next player to break through into that first team and have a consistent position on that left-hand side. So when it doesn't happen, you kind of go, oh man, that just stings a little, So it'd be very interesting to see if it's going to be Roma, a Premier League side, or RB Leipzig. We know that RB Leipzig were interested. We were looking to maybe offload Tyrique George one way and then get Xavi Simons in the other direction. Maybe that could still happen. Maybe it does become a loan. But if Chelsea are looking to, cut ties permanently with Tyrique George, they're going to want a big fee for him, or a relatively big fee. Maybe a sell-on clause. They've been adding those into a lot of the deals recently, of heavy sell-on clauses, etc., because it's money down the line in a future aspect, which is always good. We obviously felt the benefit of that from Amari Hutchinson when he was sold this summer. So be very interesting to see how much he's worth, like how much he gets quoted for, how much they actually go in for, where he ends up. But it's also a bit sad. Another Cobham graduate being sold for profit rather than being developed here at Stamford Bridge. However, the difference here is Tyrique George was self-aware enough to say, I'm not going to get many minutes this season. I do want to move so I can develop my career and basically play football. So I don't think there's any bad blood. I think it's a amicable and mutual decision from club and player of saying, all right, cool, limited options, limited minutes this season. Let's see what your options are. And this is what they've come to. So it'd be very interesting to see where he ends up. But let me know your thoughts regarding Tyrique George down below. Do you want Chelsea to keep him? Do you feel like he had a position in our first team this season? Do you feel like you agree with what Tyrique George has said in terms of he's going to get limited minutes? Would you have preferred a loan move, or do you think a permanent is the best option for all parties? Matt Law has also reported Chelsea are open to loaning Raheem Sterling, and the player would be keen to stay in the Premier League and close to London. Fulham have considered a move, while teams who miss out on their primary targets could make a late move for him. Now, to me, the Sterling and the Chilwell deal are the big ones that we need to get over the line before the end of the window, because they're the hardest players to offload in terms of their salary, the years remaining on their contract, and what they're happy to negotiate with in terms of fees. Now, Fulham were linked with Sterling a little while ago, a few weeks ago now. We spoke about that, where Chelsea were willing to pay like £20 million in wages to kind of draw a line in the sand, and it helped Fulham with a transfer fee of £20 million, and it was basically, we break even and Fulham get their player and we just get Sterling off the books. Because as of right now, he's over 300 grand a week. We don't want to keep paying him that. He had a loan spell last season to Arsenal. It didn't work out for him, let's be real. And we're kind of like, well, what do we do with him? What do we do? He's been very professional. He's been training as normal. He's not caught kicking up a fuss to throw his toys out the pram. And why would you if you've been paid 300 grand a week to not play football? It's just an astronomical amount of money. And it's the same with Ben Chilwell. A lot of you guys have said in the comments that why don't we just use him? But I feel like there's something that's gone on behind the scenes there. He's not part of the project. Maresca doesn't like him. Chilwell doesn't like Maresca. Whatever it may be, I don't really know. But essentially, they're not part of the project. They're still on big money. Chelsea want to offload them. So even though we've had a very good transfer window, and I think Chelsea are pretty much in a net positive now, or if not very close to being, it's a record-breaking window for Chelsea. It has to be for player sales. The amount we've generated, unbelievable. The two big ones is Sterling and Chilwell because of what I mentioned earlier in the video. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. I honestly feel like loan deals are going to be the only option right now because we've got 4 or 5, 6 days left of the window. I can't see a club coming in and buying them outright and being happy with paying that wage unless they're offered to Saudi and they take that move. But we can't rely on Saudi to swoop in and save us. Like we did with the João Felix deal, where it literally came out of nowhere. It was like, boom, Saudi were coming to pay the money. Amazing. I don't see them doing that with Raheem Sterling. I don't see them doing that with Ben Chilwell. There's also been talks that Lampard wants Chilwell at Coventry. I've only seen a little bit about that, so I'll keep an eye on that because that could be a potential loan maybe for Chilwell. I don't know. I don't know if Coventry can definitely afford the wages of Ben Chilwell or whether he's willing to take a pay cut. But Lampard is doing bits at Coventry, and that would be really helpful if he could take him off our hands. So it'd be very interesting to see where they end up. I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions regarding Chilwell and Sterling. What do Chelsea do with them? Because I don't think we're in a position where we could just cut up the contracts. It's going to cost us way too much money up front, which then affects all the financials. I don't see a club coming in and paying for them unless it is a Saudi job and they come in and go, actually, we'll give you 30 million for Sterling or 30 million for Chilwell or whatever it may be and get them off our books. Or do you feel like realistically it's going to be a loan, maybe with an obligation to buy, or maybe just a loan for a couple seasons, 1 year after 1 year, just until they run their contracts down? The Telegraph had reported that Chelsea had planned to use any Villa interest in Jackson or Nkunku to make their own move for Morgan Rogers, but Villa are adamant he is not for sale this summer. They go on to report that Nkunku is thought to be prepared to take a pay cut to secure the right move away. And S. Johnson Sport and The Athletic have reported that Chelsea have ended their pursuit of Morgan Rogers this window because they do not think he is for sale. Now, this is a rumour that hasn't gone away for the entire transfer window. Chelsea want Morgan Rogers. They want to spend 80 million on him. Aston Villa don't want to sell him. This has been back and forth in terms of reportings and briefings that Chelsea really like Morgan Rogers. A lot of you guys have been saying, where are we going to play him? Doesn't make any sense. We're heavily linked with Xavi Simons. If we go get Simons, go get Garnacho and then get Morgan Rogers. What's going on? Like, we just don't have the player space to be able to, play a player like Morgan Rogers as well as all the other players, right? And I totally hear that. I would love a player of Morgan Rogers' qualities in this Chelsea team. He's got the City Academy links with Joe Shields and Cole Palmer. He's obviously got Premier League experience. I think he'd be a fantastic addition. However, knowing how heavily invested we are in Xavi Simons and Garnacho and getting those deal over the line, which we'll speak about a little bit later in the video, before the end of the window shuts, I think it's right that Chelsea basically say, yeah, all right, we're not going to go for Morgan Rogers. To be honest, I didn't see us putting in a serious bid for him. I felt like it could be us being the cheeky club saying, let's get creative with a deal, what can we do? And if Villa went in for Nicolas Jackson for a serious offer, then yes, use Morgan Rogers in there as a make-weight negotiations to reduce that fee or whatever it may be. It would have made perfect sense. Maybe even Nkunku as well, because they were heavily linked with Nkunku the last few days. Just doesn't look like it's going to happen, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, to be fair, Morgan Rogers has been on our radar for a while. No doubt we'll go back in from in January, or the rumours will start up in January. Rumours will start off in the summer window for next season, because Chelsea are always very active in the transfer window. So, I don't know. Maybe this is one for the long term. Maybe this is one if we don't get Xavi Simons, that door shuts very quickly, then potentially we do like a last minute bid for Morgan Rogers. But at the same time, we're being quoted 70 million euros for Xavi Simons, which is about 60 million pounds, going for Morgan Rogers, who is a similar to player profile. Yes, he has Prem experience, but they want like 80 million pounds, which is a big jump. And I would consider that a panic buy if we don't get the Xavi Simons deal done. We then go drop 80 million on Morgan Rogers. But that's just my thoughts and opinions on it. I'd love to know yours down below regarding Morgan Rogers. Do you think Chelsea should pull out the stops and just go for him anyway? Or do you think it's a good move for us to pull away from the Morgan Rogers interest because we're focusing so much on Xavi Simons and Garnacho? Let me know your thoughts down below. Philip Hines has reported that Red Bull CEO Oliver Mintzlaff, I think that's how you pronounce it, apologies if it's wrong, got involved in the negotiations over Xavi Simons and reached out to Chelsea for talks. The outcome? Chelsea must offload players before they can make a formal offer. At the moment, only a player swap is feasible involving Nkunku. Leipzig's price tag remains firm at 70 million euros. David Ornstein has reported that last week RB Leipzig stepped up talks about a permanent deal for Nkunku. That could hold the key to whether Xavi Simons' proposed Chelsea switch occurs. If Nkunku does not move to Leipzig, it could prove detrimental to Simons joining Chelsea. This is beginning to feel like the Victor Osimhen transfer saga, where it's gone on for so long that nothing actually happens. Whether it's an agent breakdown or whatever it may be that was revealed about the Victor Osimhen saga, it's obviously very different. The situation hasn't changed. Xavi Simons is waiting patiently for the move. He's turned down Bayern Munich, he's turned down Man City, he's turned down a myriad of clubs and said he only wants Chelsea. Personal terms agreed. Waiting for the move. He played that game in the Bundesliga on Friday, and the plan is he now moves to Chelsea. Chelsea need to offload Nkunku or Nicolas Jackson. It is as simple as that. We are going in circles. A lot of clubs interested in Nkunku, a lot of clubs interested in Jackson. Nothing's really got over the line. We are going to talk about Jackson in just a second because he has agreed terms with Bayern Munich, and that makes things very interesting. But we need to offload these players. When it comes to RB Leipzig, originally they wanted a swap deal. Nkunku goes there on loan, and then we pay for Xavi Simons. Bada bing, bada boom. Now they've actually stepped up and said, what about a permanent deal? Now, I don't think Leipzig, we've gone over this before with this club and obviously Nkunku. Leipzig then had an issue with the wages that he was on. Now, it has been reported that Nkunku's willing to take a pay cut to make the right move. He also wants Champions League football. Leverkusen are interested. A lot of Italian clubs are interested. Premier League clubs are interested. We just need someone to stick money on the table and say, we will take Nkunku. Because I don't think Nkunku is going to have any issue about personal terms with clubs. He wants to play football. He wants to play at the highest level. Now, like I've said before, he has an emotional attachment to RB Leipzig and the fan base, and it would be a very emotional return for him to go back to the club that made his name, or where he made his name at, right? However way you want to look at it. And that means that Xavi Simons can then come to Chelsea. My only concern with this is it's starting to feel like Victor Osimhen saga, and we're getting very close to the end of the window. I still feel confident that it will happen, but as the days go on and no real breakthroughs happening, getting very itchy feet about it, cold feet about it. What's going to happen? Now, obviously, we're going to talk about Nicolas Jackson in just a second, because that could be the gateway where one player goes out and the other one comes in, right? Because we know that Chelsea have to offload Jackson and Nkunku to bring in two more signings of Xavi Simons and Garnacho. So what we could potentially see is only Xavi Simons comes in, or only Garnacho comes in, depending on which of the one or two players leave and how Chelsea want to fill that void. Because it's all down to UEFA slots and registering players for UEFA competitions and the settlement that we've agreed with them. So it does come a bit sticky when it comes to these players. Now, I honestly feel like Nkunku will be leaving Chelsea. Jackson will be leaving Chelsea, but we are running out of time, and I'm just getting itchy feet about it. So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you see the Xavi Simons deal going through? Do you feel like Nkunku will go to Leverkusen? Will he go to a Premier League club? Will he go on a permanent? Will he go on a loan? Will he go to Leipzig? How do you feel like this saga will end? Will Chelsea get their player, or will we be stuck with Nkunku and Jackson for another season until we find out another way of offloading players to then bring these players in? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Kieran Gill has reported it's understood that Chelsea still want around £80 million for Jackson and £40 million for Nkunku. Both have been training with the first team and not the bomb squad in case they get reintegrated. Now I want to touch on this very, very quickly, because we're sandwiching in between Xavi Simons, Nkunku and Nicolas Jackson updates here. Now, I understand that they've been training with the first team. Maresca's even said, they're part of the first team training plans, but they're not going to be involved on match days. Fair enough. It is what it is. Game's the game. Enzo Maresca knows that we're trying to offload them. They're leaving the club. Fair enough. Not going with this bomb squad thing, right? Fair play. £80 million for Jackson, we're not going to get. We're just not going to get that. I don't know why we're sticking around the £80 million. We are just trying to be greedy at that point, in my opinion. If we're looking to offload the player and we want to make profit, slack 60 million on him rather than 80 million. We sell him tomorrow. It's as simple as that, because we bought him for 32. We amortized all our contracts. We're still making mad profit on 60 million, and clubs will quite happily snap him up at that. Nkunku for 40, I do feel was a fair price, but like I just mentioned in the video, we just need a club to slap money on the table and say, yeah, we'll pay that. Because I do think he's worth every penny of that 40 million. He's 27, going into the prime years of his career. He's a very technically gifted footballer, and in the right system, he thrives. It's as simple as that. We've seen it. When it comes to Jackson and Nkunku being reintegrated, I don't see it happening. It's a long day at the office. That is a hill or a mountain they have to climb to get back into Maresca's good books, at least in my opinion. With our new additions, the way that Enzo Maresca sets up, the rotation, the competitions we're playing, Maresca is very tunnel vision, and we know this. He's planned and playing this season. They're not part of those plans. So if they need to be reintegrated, he's then got to rethink of how he could reintegrate them. Will they just sit as fringe players and not get any minutes? Neither player wants that. Maresca don't want that either. The club don't want that, because they see it as a depreciating asset if they're not playing. Then does that create some sort of conversations to be had between Maresca and the board of saying you need to kind of play these to keep their price tag up so we can offload them in January or next summer? I don't know. I don't know the politics of that. All I am saying is I think it's a long day at the office, and I don't think they can be reintegrated because it's gone on far too long that these players are off by the end of the window. So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding the reintegration. Is it possible to reintegrate Jackson and Nkunku if they don't get sold this summer window, or is it too far gone? Do these players need to leave by the end of the window? Let me know your thoughts down below. Fabrizio Romano has reported that Bayern made club-to-club contact with Chelsea on Monday for Nicolas Jackson to discuss formula. Could be a loan plus obligation. Newcastle keep calling and calling too. Jackson could be the big bomb in the next few days of the market. Rahman Osman has reported breaking exclusive. There is now an agreement between Nicolas Jackson and Bayern Munich. Bayern just need to agree a fee with Chelsea. Both parties want to get it done. Jackson's agent in London to finalise transfer. Foot Mercato reported breaking news earlier that Nicolas Jackson's agent Diamanci Kamara, I hope I pronounced that right, he says 30 goals in 2 seasons without a single penalty. Highs, lows, but a page is turning at the Blues. Always grateful for yesterday, but already looking toward tomorrow with optimism. Germany, Italy, England, the options are numerous, the decision is imminent. Thank you for the support, we see your messages. Nicolas Jackson, transfer expected within 48 hours, inshallah. However, about 15 minutes later, Kieran Gill had reported that Jackson's camp say these quotes are fake. There is a lot to break down here. When it comes to the agent's quotes, whether they're fake or not, that is a bit of intent. That just doesn't come out of nowhere. No one's just made that up completely. There may be some elements of truth to that, and maybe it's a way of venting frustrations of Nicolas Jackson is off. We're looking forward to that. We've got lots of offers. Don't worry, a deal is going to be done within the next 2 days. We also have the break-in that Nicolas Jackson has, agreed terms with Bayern Munich, and it's club-to-club talks to get that final fee. So knowing my luck, once this video is uploaded, the fee will be agreed. But essentially, Jackson is gone. He's leaving. Bye. We have very minimal days left of the window. Bayern Munich look to be grabbing him, whether it's a loan with obligation or whether it's a flat fee. Now, I don't personally feel like Bayern Munich are going to be spending £80 million up front, because we've seen the reports that they can only sign players on loan between now and the end of the window. However, that doesn't stop them signing a loan with an obligation to buy. Whether that's a £10 million loan fee that Chelsea were quoted reportedly wanting, plus the obligation for later in the window, 10 million now and then 70 million if he hits the add-ons and the obligation. Whether or not we then put a fine in there, a heavy fine, rather than 5 million that Manchester United did with us with Jadon Sancho, to say if you don't buy him, you still owe us money because that they're the terms, and if you break the terms, that's the fine for it. Who knows? I find it very interesting that the agent's camp has said that this is fake, because that's very detailed. It's also quite factual. 30 goals in 2 seasons without a single penalty, highs, lows, and and the page is turning. He's hit the nail on the head. He has done that. Good GA for a player who's young, developing, missed a lot of chances, but shown very good qualities, highs and lows in his Chelsea career. And I hope that this is amicable in terms of the split. Whether or not the agent's quotes are true or not, I mean, Kieran Gill said that the camp has said it's fake. Fair enough. But there just seems to be substance to it. It doesn't seem to be something you just kind of spit out, type on a screen and go, right, that's what he said. I feel like there is definitely an element of truth to it. However, the most important pressing matter is that Bayern Munich and Jackson, I can't believe we're saying Nicolas Jackson and Bayern Munich in the same sentence. I would never have thought he would get a move to somewhere like Bayern Munich. However, Harry Kane is getting on a bit. He's still performing at a very high level, of course, but they may be thinking for the future as a rotation, a replacement in terms of, Harry Kane is getting a bit older. He can't play 90 minutes of every single game. Obviously, they had Kingsley Coman leave to Saudi. There is going to be a space that, maybe on that left or, drifting in, which Nicolas Jackson can play. Whether we see that in the Bundesliga, I don't know. But the big pressing issue is, what is the deal going to be? Will it be a loan with obligation, which I feel like it may be? Will there be loan fees involved with that? What's the obligation looking like? Is there a fine for if you don't hit that obligation to buy? Or are Bayern Munich just going to whip out their checkbook and go, do you know what? This is an investment for the future. 80 million euros, bosh, and then we get like 70 million pounds for Nicolas Jackson, paid in installments, whatever it may be. I don't really know, but it looks like Nicolas Jackson to Bayern Munich is pretty much done as long as the clubs can agree. And even if you read in between the lines of what the agent's saying, they're saying they've got multiple offers in the next 2 days. A deal's got to be done, and I feel like that has to be true, because there's only a limited amount of time, finite amount of time left in this transfer window. Chelsea want Jackson gone. Jackson now is really pushing for the move. Now, it's interesting that Newcastle have been calling, according to Fabrizio Romano, because it looks like Newcastle weren't going to go for a player like Jackson because they're adamant they're not getting rid of Isak. However, it looks like they're going to leave him to rot in the reserves, and fair play. I rate that, That means they do need a forward. With the whole Anthony Gordon thing going on yesterday and the red card and whatever, they are desperate for a forward. So Newcastle, you've got a few days, you've got Bayern Munich, he's agreed personal terms. If you come in with a fat fee, I'm sure Chelsea will quite happily give you Nicolas Jackson, and I'm pretty sure he would agree personal terms to stay in the Premier League and play for a club like Newcastle, where you desperately need a number 9. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below regarding Nicolas Jackson. Do you see this move to Bayern Munich happening, being finalised today? Do you think it will be a loan with an obligation? Will it be a loan fee involved? Will it be a permanent deal with a fat wad of cash? Or do you feel like Newcastle could come in last minute, swoop up Nicolas Jackson in this deal because they are desperate for a number 9? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.